You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Tools are getting better, output is getting worse. Both are true.
Yeah, I mean, it is basically the great contradiction of the whole tech cycle right now. Uh, we've never had so much leverage, but so many teams are just spinning their wheels.
Right, they're burning heaps of cash without actually moving the needle. Welcome to Vocal Technologist, where we grab a pint and take a proper look at the weird reality of building software right now.
Because, we're well past the initial hype phase of AI. The dust has sort of settled on the shiny chatbots.
Exactly. And the goal here is to suss out what is actually working. We want to help you figure out what is real sustainable revenue and what is just a bit dodgy, a really expensive illusion.
Yeah, the market is definitely waking up to the massive difference between building a durable business and just like putting together a flashy demo with the Stripe integration attached to it.
Which brings us to the first massive red flag we need to talk about. You see these headlines, and startups are claiming massive hypergrowth.
Right, shouting from the rooftops about hitting 50 or 100 million in annual recurring revenue.
But when you actually poke around the underlying unit economics of those businesses, it gets a bit ordinary. Very dark, actually.
Well, yeah, the reality of that 100 million in revenue is often that 90 million is going straight out the back door to model providers.
Right, to Anthropic or OpenAI.
Exactly. The startups are basically just acting as a middleman. They collect the revenue from a customer and immediately hand it over to pay for the intelligence doing the actual work.
So this is where Chamath's framework really stood out in the research. He asks two brilliant questions for any CEO in this space. First, if your AI bill doubled every 45 days, could anyone actually show what got twice as good?
And I mean, for the vast majority of companies, the answer is just a resounding no.
No chance.
Because every time a customer uses an AI feature, the startup pays a token cost, right? A token is basically just a piece of a word.
Right, so more usage equals more compute you have to rent.
Exactly. And those token costs are surging, sometimes doubling, at that exact 45-day rate. But the added productivity they get out of their workforce is, estimated maybe 5 to 10%?
So the compute cost is going exponential, but the actual value generated is just creeping up.
It is a brutal math equation. And there's this secondary, quieter cost here, too. Think about how employees actually use these tools. When they generate a report or some code, it is rarely perfect on the first try, right?
Yeah, you always have to tweak it.
Right, they rewrite a paragraph, they adjust the prompt logic. Where do you think those corrections go?
Back into the system, back to the model provider.
Spot on. You are essentially paying exorbitant fees to train another company's model on how your specific business makes decisions.
Wow, so you're handing over your proprietary intelligence and paying them for the privilege of doing it. Okay, wait, I have to be honest here. I am genuinely skeptical of this whole setup. If the underlying AI gets completely commoditized or just becomes free down the line, what are customers actually paying these startups for? Are these founders just having a lend of themselves?
It is a massive vulnerability. If your core product is just passing a text prompt to a frontier model, you don't really have a product.
You just have a toll booth on a road that's about to become a public highway.
That is a great way to put it, yeah.
It is like running a really popular local pub, but you are buying all the beer at retail prices from the bottle-o across the street. Sure, the pub is packed, but your margins are completely non-existent.
And the instinct for a lot of founders is just to, wait for the models to get cheaper. They assume the cost of tokens will drop as compute scales, and their margins will magically expand.
Right, but why wouldn't cheaper APIs fix the margin issue? If my costs go down, I keep more money.
Because you do not operate in a vacuum. If it gets cheaper for you, it gets cheaper for your competitors too. And enterprise customers are completely aware of this dynamic now.
They'll want the discount passed on.
Exactly. If the underlying cost drops, they expect those savings. If you refuse, they just take their business to a competitor where they just build it themselves. Margin compression is a permanent feature of this architecture.
So if you can't rely on cheaper APIs to save you, you have to drastically lower your internal operating costs. You basically have to change how the software is built in the first place.
Which is driving this massive, quiet shift toward Chinese open-weight models. We are seeing models like Qwen 3.8 and Kimi K3 getting serious traction in the developer community.
But let's break that down for someone who isn't an engineer. What makes an open-weight model different?
Well, with a closed model like OpenAI, you just send a request over the internet and pay a fee. You never see the underlying code.
Mm-hmm.
Open weight means the creators have released those parameters publicly.
So you can just download the entire brain of the AI and run it on your own servers.
Yeah, you completely eliminate that API toll booth,
Mm-hmm.
and they're actually good enough to replace the expensive ones for most tasks.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they represent 25 to 50% of volume on routing platforms like OpenRouter now. The performance gap to the frontier models has shrunk to just 4 to 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Startups are realizing they don't need the absolute smartest model for every routine task. They can route 90% of the work to these vastly cheaper models and protect their margins.
Which forces a profound change in the actual structure of a tech company.
Exactly. You move from a traditional firm to what they are calling a 12-factor company. In the past, the bottleneck was always human execution.
Right, like how fast someone can type code or draft copy.
But if AI makes that execution practically free and instantaneous, the bottleneck shifts
to what?
to human taste and human judgment.
Taste is the primary bottleneck for software development. That is a wild concept to wrap your head around.
It changes the shape of software completely. We
Yeah.
were looking at 2030 shaped software. Agents do the heavy lifting in the background, and the UI just exists for humans to approve decisions or, stop the agent from doing something genuinely destructive.
Like Amplitude speedrunning software by building an autonomous factory. They actually tripled their pull requests just by letting AI generate the proposals.
Yeah, when you take that many shots on goal, your ability to figure out what customers actually want accelerates exponentially. And look at Meta's MCP, or the concept of Notion as code.
Right, defining an entire workspace, permissions and all, in TypeScript and having an agent build it instantly.
Yeah, and then there's the Buzz Workspace, which acts as a shared relay, an event log with taste, where humans and automated agents cooperate seamlessly. It completely redefines the speed deployment.
Okay, let me push back on this vision for a second.
Sure.
If the AI is writing the code, configuring the ad campaigns, analyzing the data, what exactly is the human's job now? Are we just glorified babysitters for code?
Not babysitters,
Yeah.
governors. The job shifts entirely to institutional memory and governance. There is a fascinating platform called Rogo Intelligence addressing this exact tension.
What do they do differently?
AI can build an application fast, but it doesn't inherently know why your specific company needs it built a certain way. It doesn't know the quirky preferences of your biggest client. Rogo sits between a firm's raw knowledge and the AI, turning fragmented documents into structured institutional memory.
So the AI provides the velocity, but the human provides the vector. They decide the direction based on context the AI just doesn't have.
Exactly.
If you are keen on untangling these shifts with us, turn on notifications for the show, because the sheer speed of this execution creates a massive new vulnerability.
Oh, definitely. The phony growth trap.
Right. Now that companies can build features instantly and generate slick marketing, they are acquiring completely the wrong users.
This brings up Leah Thorin's insights on activation. Activation isn't just getting a sign-up, it's getting them to actually experience the core value of the product so they stay.
But the dashboards are telling founders they're doing great, right?
Because AI makes onboarding so easy to polish. The marketing copy is optimized, the initial user numbers look fantastic, and the board is happy. But when you check the cohort data, month 2 survival rates just plummet.
So the company is actually dying. It is like throwing a massive party and eagerly counting every single person walking through the front door without realizing they all walked straight out the back door 5 minutes later because the music was rubbish.
Yeah, you just got vastly better at enrolling people who have no real need for your software. And in B2B software, an empty dance floor is fatal. Startups don't just die by suicide, they die by competition.
Which goes against that whole tech culture myth, right?
It is entirely backwards. A slightly lower win rate against the competitor means you miss your revenue targets. That means budget cuts, ruined morale, slower future development, and an even lower win rate. It is a death spiral.
And to break out of that spiral, a 5% improvement isn't enough. You need to offer 10 times the speed or half the price to make an enterprise customer go through the pain of switching vendors.
Which means you need to find customers who have an urgent burning problem right now. The tactical advice on this was brilliant. Stop looking at Series A funding announcements.
Right, because by the time that hits the press, 30 other aggressive vendors are already spamming their inbox.
You're just noise at that point. Instead, search LinkedIn for founder-written hiring posts at companies under 200 employees actively looking for SDRs.
Sales development reps. Because if a founder is publicly posting that, their pipeline problem is urgent and the budget is already approved.
Exactly. The problem is public, And the money is sitting right there. You bypass the competition entirely and show how your software solves the problem before their new human hire even finishes onboarding.
But that brings up the VROOM postmortem, which genuinely surprised me, because if finding the right signal is this hard, maybe founders are just targeting the wrong markets entirely.
VRoom is the classic example of incredibly smart people solving the wrong problem. They looked at the $90 billion event planning industry.
And diagnosed it as an information asymmetry problem. They thought, oh, we'll just build a software dashboard to centralize pricing and venue availability.
But 4 months later, it fell apart. Venue prices went stale constantly, but more importantly, customers weren't paying for organized information. They were paying for trust.
Right, the peace of mind that the caterer will actually show up on time and not ruin the wedding.
A dashboard can give you the cheapest price, but it can't look you in the eye and guarantee the flowers will be fresh. You can't code trust. If a business's advantage is personal relationships, it is a service business, not a software problem.
It is wild how easily brilliant founders mistake a deeply human trust problem for a software problem. So where should they be looking instead?
They need to look at invisible companies. Look at the story of Steve Ross. He started by renting out his father-in-law's unused funeral limousines at night.
Oh, wow.
He built this gritty, unglamorous operation, and that collection of cash-flowing businesses eventually generated the leverage to buy Warner Bros.
Funeral cars to Hollywood, that is an ultimate pivot.
But the tech equivalent is Constellation Software. They built an absolute empire by buying tiny, hyper-niche software businesses. We're talking software for marinas, local libraries, funeral homes. They own over 38,000 of them.
38,000 independent software companies. That scale is almost impossible to comprehend.
They achieve it because ambitious people rarely look at these industries. Don't build for the high-end event planner. Build the inventory software for the unglamorous linen supplier that nobody at the tech conference thought was worth meeting. The churn is incredibly low.
But to build for these really gritty legacy industries, you might use forward-deployed engineering, right? FDEs. You fly in, sit on the factory floor, and ship a messy V1 in a week.
It is deeply hands-on and incredibly effective. But there is a massive trap here. If customer 10 requires the exact same bespoke engineering hours to set up as customer 1,
then you haven't built a software company. You've basically built a consultancy with a very expensive software demo.
Exactly. The unit economics have to improve dramatically. And managing the humans, building all this in these new paradigms, has to adapt too. The old rules are breaking down.
Right. We saw this in the primer for managers research. A lot of what we call management today is actually abandonment masquerading as delegation.
Managers say, just own this project with zero context.
Yeah.
Then get frustrated when the result is wrong. You have to agree on 4 specific things up front.
Let's lay them out.
What counts as done, what good work looks like, the hard due date, and available resources.
Yeah.
Establish those, then step back.
And this ties directly into company culture as you scale, like with Zerota.
Yeah, they have a strict defining rule. They absolutely do not push their customers to trade. But a new employee knew the rule existed, but had no idea why it existed.
So they successfully preserved the rule but lost the underlying reason. If you ask a recent hire what your company refuses to do, and all they can do is recite a marketing slogan, your onboarding has completely failed.
If you lose the why, the rule gets discarded the second things get difficult, and it takes 2 full years for an employee to properly contribute. Burning them out at year 2 is an incredibly expensive mistake.
It really is. It destroys your momentum. And I mean, the game is changing so fast. I reckon the companies surviving and thriving into the 2030 framework won't be the ones bragging about writing the most code. They will be the ones with the sharpest human taste, applying that judgment to solve the absolute grittiest problems in industries most people find too boring to even look at. Vocal technologists, see you soon.
Spoken Tech for your ears.